If your business still runs too heavily through you, then you've probably already tried to fix it. You've delegated more, you've tried to step back, and you've tried to protect your time. But somehow you still end up right back in the middle of everything. In this video, I'm going to break down the 5 fixes that actually need to happen if you want to get out of the weeds and stop being central to everything. And if as we go through this, you want to know which of these is creating the biggest drag in your situation, then in the description below, you can take my CEO Bottleneck diagnostic. It's a free assessment that in 7 minutes is going to show you exactly where the business is still too dependent on you. If you're new here, I'm Byron Morrison. I'm the author of The Effective CEO 2.0, and I help first-time scale-up CEOs stop being the bottleneck in their business so they can lead at the level their company now demands. What I found is that the reason so many CEOs is too central to everything is because 5 problems exist within the business. So I'm going to break them down one at a time, along with what you need to do about them. The first is what should or shouldn't reach you. This is one of the most common issues I see, and it's because there's no real decision architecture within the company. What I mean by that is there's no clear line between what the team owns, what they should handle and keep you informed about, and what actually needs your involvement. So by default, everything rises. Questions that should have a clear owner, decisions that should be made lower down, problems that should be solved before they ever get near you. They keep getting sent your way. And because you want to be the person who keeps things moving, you answer them and you dive in. And it feels efficient in the moment. But what you're really doing is you're teaching the business that the fastest way forward is to come through you. That's why the fix here isn't just telling people to stop bringing you things. It's getting clear on what people own without you and what only you should be involved in. You do that by clearly defining 3 categories for your team. Decisions that they make without you, decisions they make and simply keep you informed about, and decisions that genuinely need your input before anything moves forward. Because once that's defined properly, the volume of things that will reach you will drop. And that drop matters as it's not just less noise, it's more time, focus, and bandwidth that you get back every single week. The second thing that needs to change is your rescue reflex. Because even when the structure is a lot clearer, a lot of overwhelmed CEOs still step back in way too fast. And logically, it makes sense because a problem comes up, so you dive in to fix or handle it because it's quicker than coaching someone or talking them through it. So in the moment, it feels like leadership or the faster solution. And because of that, it's easy to justify it to yourself as you can see the problem resolved. The reality, though, is all this does is further train the business to rely on you even more. I see this all the time where instead of being the last line of defense, the CEO becomes the first person that people go to. So all day people keep coming to them with problems that they shouldn't even be involved in. I saw this happen in a conversation recently where a CEO told me that his morning got disrupted by someone coming into his office asking what they should do about a broken window. Was it important? Sure. Did it need to be handled by the CEO? Of course not. But the problem with being the fixer is you create a culture where people don't think for themselves. Instead, they just dump it on you as they know that you're going to step in and handle it. That's why one of the most useful shifts is to stop accepting problems in the form that they usually brought you in. What that means, if someone comes to you with a problem, you have to push it back on them and get them to figure it out first. My favorite strategy for that is called the 1-3-1. When someone comes to you with one problem, you send them away with the task of looking at 3 potential solutions, and then they have to come back to you with one recommendation about what to do about it. What this does is it forces someone to look at the actual issue and ways that they can approach solving it instead of just handing it off. And then if needed, you're there just to have the final conversation about what to do moving forward. This is how you remove yourself from being central to figuring it out. You also find that when you start pushing back, people start to think for themselves, or they realize that you aren't just going to solve it. So they start working out solutions before they even bring you problems. So remember, your job is not to be the person with all the answers or who solves every issue, but it will remain that way if you keep allowing it to happen. The third thing that needs to change is accountability. Because this is where a lot of delegation quietly breaks down. I speak to so many CEOs who tell me how they delegate tasks, but they still keep the weight of the outcome. They hand over the work, but they still stay emotionally and mentally responsible for whether or not it goes well. This is why they keep checking in and making themselves available to course correct whenever needed. So even though the task has moved, the pressure hasn't. And both your team and the business know that if it gets messy enough, you'll dive back in and carry it. That's why the real shift is moving from delegating tasks to creating outcome ownership. This is going to sound really obvious, but you'd be amazed how many times I have a CEO bring up an issue with a task that was delegated, yet when I ask if they communicate when they needed it by or set clear expectations, the answer is no. And this is often the step that is missed, and it's one of the most important. This is why whenever you delegate a task, always make sure that everyone is clear on what does success look like, when is it needed by, and who owns the result if it doesn't happen. Then it's on you as a leader to hold your team to those expectations. One of the lines that I come back to a lot is that the business reflects what you've tolerated, what you've trained, and what you've failed to define. And accountability is one of the clearest places to see that. If the team is responsible for activity, they're going to keep giving you activity. Whereas if they're responsible for the outcome, then the dynamic changes. The fourth thing that needs to shift is how you protect the time that the business actually needs from you. Not the time that you wish that you had, the time the business genuinely needs from you if you're going to continue to scale. This is where a lot of overwhelmed CEOs still get it wrong because they think that the issue is time management. But that's rarely the case. Instead, it's that the wrong work keeps displacing what they should actually be focusing on. Because at the end of the day, every hour you spend in approvals, firefighting, low-level decisions, or meetings you don't need to be in comes at the direct cost of the work that only you can do. And that's why I talk so much about getting clear on three things. Where does your time have the greatest impact? What can only be done by you? And where are you involved in the business that you shouldn't? Because everything you do and commit to and take on should be looked at through the lens of, is this actually a good use of your time or should it be handled by someone else? I'll give you an example. Like recently I had a CEO come to me who was working 70, 80-hour weeks. And he told me how there's never enough minutes in the day to get everything done. And when we broke it down, he was constantly busy and in motion, but he'd get to the end of the week and he'd look back and he didn't actually know what he moved forward. And when we start auditing his time, what became clear is most of his days revolved around putting out fires, solving other people's problems, or handling tasks that shouldn't be done by a CEO. So tasks like strategic thinking, setting direction, and solving the challenges that actually shape the future of the business keep getting put aside. And that's the real cost, as the business doesn't just lose your time, it loses your highest value contribution. And for the CEO, one of the reasons he wanted to hire me was he wanted help finding ways to become more productive or to get more done in a day. And what I had to change his mindset on is this wasn't about cramming more in. It was about getting him out of everything he shouldn't be doing. And we did that by clearly defining his role, by empowering his team, by getting him out of the day-to-day, by pushing back and getting people to take ownership for the things that they should be doing. He went from working 70, 80-hour weeks to now he's working less than 40 hours and he's still getting the same output, except now the things he's moving forward actually directly impact the business. That's why the fix here isn't to manage your time better, it's to deliberately protect time every single week just for the work that only you can do. And the easiest place to start is to carve out one non-negotiable chunk of time every week just for CEO work, not for admin or catching up, for the work that actually drives the business forward. And the hardest part about sticking to this is there's always going to be something in the moment that will feel more important or that you'll want to justify getting involved in. And that's why I want you to watch. Does that block keep getting moved or disrupted? Because if it does, then that's going to tell you everything you need to know about how reactive your operating model still is. Because until that changes, you'll continue prioritizing what needs your attention right now over what's more important long term. And ultimately, that's the biggest risk to the potential impact, growth, and success that you could create in your company. The fifth thing that needs to change is the identity that keeps pulling you back in. This is the deepest part of it, and it's the reason the first four often fail when someone tries to put them in place. because you can build better structure, create more accountability, and protect your time. But then 6 weeks later, you still find yourself right back in the middle of everything. Not because the fix was wrong, but because internally you're still wired to throw yourself back into the chaos. I see this all the time with overwhelmed CEOs who are their own worst enemy. A problem appears and something in you says, I should just handle this. Or someone is struggling, so stepping in feels like support. Or a decision stalls, so you convince yourself it's easier just to make it yourself. And in the moment, this doesn't feel like self-sabotage. If anything, it feels like the right thing to do for the team or the company. But what's actually happening is your identity hasn't fully caught up with the role that your business now needs you to play. Because internally, you're still tying your value to output and what you get done. So you judge yourself and your productivity by what you move forward. And it makes sense because there was a time where you needed to operate that way. And that identity built the business or got you to this stage in your career. That's because when you were starting out or lower down, being the doer was useful. It was needed and it helped to create momentum. But the version of you that built the business by being across everything is not the version of you the business now needs if you want to actually continue scaling it. So when you find yourself stepping back into the weeds, you've got to ask yourself, am I doing this because the business genuinely needs me here? Or am I doing this because being in the middle of everything still feels safer than stepping back? Because if your identity is causing the friction, then until that shifts, the first 4 fixes will only hold for so long. And this is why it's never just about delegation, calendars, or structure. It's about evolving how you see yourself in the role. That's the work I do with CEOs in my Evolve CEO program, where our focus is on upgrading the way that you think, lead, and operate so that you can become the leader your business needs. Because the CEO who finally stops being the bottleneck isn't the one who becomes more organized. It's the one who genuinely stops seeing their value as being in everything and who understands that their highest contribution is not in doing more, it's in leading better, thinking clearly, setting direction, and making the decisions that only they can make. That's how they can create the conditions for everyone else to do their best work. So if your business is still running too heavily through you, then those are the 5 things that need to change. Clarifying what should or shouldn't reach you. Stop solving problems that your team should own. Make your team accountable for outcomes, not just tasks. Protect the time that the business actually needs from you to drive it forward, and shift the identity that keeps pulling you back into the weeds. Now, the reality is that most overwhelmed CEOs watching this are going to recognize all 5 of these challenges. And the hardest part is figuring out which one is the actual root cause in your business right now and which one needs to be fixed first before the others are ever going to truly hold. That's exactly what my CEO Bottleneck diagnostic was for. It's going to help you uncover where you're stuck in the weeds, what's draining your time and energy, and what actually needs to change so that the business stops being so dependent on you. It takes 7 minutes and you can take the assessment for free using the link in the description below. And if you're running a scaling company, I personally review every submission and I send back a breakdown of where the bottleneck is forming and what to address first. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 5 changes stood out to you the most, and which do you think is causing the biggest drag in your company? And also make sure you give this video a like and hit the subscribe, because every week I put out more videos for first-time scale-up CEOs on how to become more effective in your role. I've been Byron Morrison. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.